So here we are, still wandering around, and we've arrived at the NI stand, and of course we've got our good friend Jason here who's going to run us through a little bit. Hey, Jason.
How are you?
Very well, mate.
This is a Factory Sound
Factory
TV.
Sound TV,
Oh, wow.
exactly.
This
So
is my debut on Factory Sound TV.
It is, and
How are you?
welcome. Very well, mate.
Excellent.
So I hear there's something called a Maschine.
Maschine, yes. Maschine, the 128 track sequencing music production workstation, an MPW.
Have you got one here?
We've got a couple actually. One here and one here. So for this Maschine setup here, we're using it as a control surface for Traktor Scratch Pro, and demonstrating the fact that the Traktor and the machine can really integrate together in a very synergetic fashion. Over here on the left.
I got to admit, that's the first time I've heard that today.
Yes.
Synergetic.
Yes, that's maybe I needed a little bit more sleep last night.
No,
yeah.
but it's
Synergetic.
we
Yes, I'm
understand.
inventing language.
Yeah, no,
Excellent.
but very
This
descriptive.
machine here is Joshua's setup, which is more for the producer side of our product line. Actually, Joshua, would you like to come on and?
So this
show
is
us
Joshua from
This is Joshua Fieldstra from
Native
Native
Instruments.
Instruments. He's the
Hello,
lead
Joshua.
international
Cheers, nice to meet you.
Tony
Very good.
Factory Sound TV, Artie.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet all of you.
So let's plug you up.
Yeah, sure. See a bit of machine.
Absolutely. Maybe a bit of Maschine inside a core.
All right. So this is Machine. This is a product that we debuted at NAMM this year. So it's been on the market since about March or so, and this is a groove box style of working, similar to an Akai MPC, Korg Electribe. If you've used anything like that, or any of the drum machines from the 80s, for example, that's what Machine is. You've got about 14,000 different sounds inside here. You also have several hundred drum kits, instrument sounds, all kinds of different sounds inside Machine. I just loaded a drum kit here. Give ourselves a little audio. And there's a drum kit. The second you load a kit in, it'll also come in with some patterns. Here's a pattern. You can switch between patterns on the fly. I can also put my own patterns in to Machine as well. Add more patterns, make your own.
And you said 1,400 sounds.
14,000. 14,000 sounds. This is one drum kit out of several hundred drum kits, but if I want to start and build a kit from scratch, if I want to start at the actual sound level, if I want to say I'm going to start with an ordinary, say, kick drum, for example, this is the kind of thing we're going to get about 14,000 of these. The good thing about Machine is that despite the fact you have so many sounds, you can tell it very specifically what you're looking for and kind of narrow the list down. I just told it I want a kick drum, only an acoustic kick drum, for example, or I could tell it I want a kick drum that's sampled from a record. All of these are going to be kick drums sampled from actual records. That's a much smaller list to deal with when you've told it specifically what you want than the 14,000. So even though you've got so many, you can find the one you're looking for pretty quickly. Say I want to find a snare drum now, I can do the exact same thing I just did with a kick drum, and I can audition these on the fly.
So if we go through a list that's not from an acoustic list, what can we see?
You can see a lot of different things. If I take like a snare here, let's focus, I'll deliberately choose digital, for example. These are all going to be far more interesting, experimental.
And are these taken from some of the most famous previously used?
Most of this is our own sound design, actually. So, and that was important to us when we came up for the library. When we came up with the library for this, we wanted people to be able to have sounds that were production ready, that you could put on a record tomorrow, that no one else had. So rather than, and there are a few things that are taken from classic drum machines, but that makes up kind of a small percentage of the library. Most of this stuff is kind of ad hoc. It was rolled specifically for a machine. In addition to the individual sounds and the various kits, you've also got a lot of sound shaping abilities inside Machine. You've got the ability to tune individual sounds, reverse the direction, add DSP, things like compression, drive, sample rate reduction, bit rate reduction. You've got a lot of different kinds of effects. If I wanted to put, say, a reverb on this snare drum, for example, there's a reverb. It's only on the snare drum. Each individual sound can get its own effect. You can then make you saw me make a pattern a moment ago. You can take all these patterns, chain them together, make a larger piece, and then actually burn the entire thing to audio when you're finished. So it's a complete sort of workstation solution.
And would there ever be an application where somebody might be triggering electronic drums to be able to plug in here and use these as a sound source?
This will respond to MIDI, yeah. For instance, if I hit this kick drum here, I happen to have a MIDI keyboard here, it immediately triggers the selected sound. But in truth, most of the workflow, instead of using an external drum kit, most people are going to want to use the controller itself, and because the reason for that is that the workflow, you saw how quickly I was able to get those individual parts in, how quickly I can do things like add a reverb. Most of the workflow is based around the controller. The controller itself, by the way, is not only for Maschine. With one button push, it becomes a generic MIDI controller as well, so I can control anything that responds to MIDI. I could, for instance, control a sequencer. I could control an external piece of hardware, like a workstation keyboard or a rack-mounted synthesizer. And then with another button push, I go back to controlling Maschine. So there's a lot of things going on specifically with just the controller itself.
And you can write a track where you might have 4 bars of this, 8 bars of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, the patterns that I just put in a moment ago, I was able to do several different patterns on the fly. While that one's going, I can go and load a completely different kit. Maybe if I want to choose percussion this time, like right now I'm going to load a bongo kit. And then while the original one I had is playing, so maybe I want one pattern from this drum kit playing, have a completely different pattern from the bongos playing, and then you can chain them all up together. 4 bars of this, 8 bars of that, as you were saying a minute ago, and then burn the whole thing down as an audio file. But this will also run as a plugin inside any sequencer as well. So if you have Pro Tools, Logic, Cubase, Sonar, you can load Maschine directly into that environment and use it along with your existing sequencer.
So is there something, do we talk about polyphony or multi-timbral capabilities with this?
It's highly multi-timbral because, as you might have just heard, there's one drum kit.
So how many can we put on top of each other? How many part multi-timbral?
You can push it as far as your computer will let you. There's really no fixed kind of limit. If you want to have, 100 different sounds going on exactly at the top of the bar, you can certainly do that. In fact, we've designed it so that in addition to having drum kits, if you want to have instrumental sounds, say for example something like a keyboard sound, if I go, or say like a bass, I can load an analog bass sound, which I just did here. And that itself is just taking up one single pad. If I want to load a completely different sound on the next pad, so on and so forth. So it's designed to be multi-timbral, where you can just keep layering instrumental sounds, drum sounds, all kinds of things like that, and record them down. So yeah, multi-timbral indeed.
Well, that's a terrific run through. Any questions? No, I think that was perfect. Thank you very much. That was terrific. Anytime you are in Australia, make sure you drop down to Melbourne. Come and visit us at Factory Sound. We'll show you a good time.
On, Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Well, it's a date. Until then.
Cheers.
Oh, you are great. That was bloody.
Thank you very much.